having some new folks on the board.
Glad to be here.
Great. Let's see. The first thing on the agenda is just noting the chair, vice chair that we voted on at the last meeting. So I'll continue as chair for another year, and Beverly will continue as vice chair. Beverly did let me know she'll be a few minutes late to tonight's meeting, but she should be here shortly. It's time for general comments, public comments. If there's anyone on the call that would like to have 3 minutes to speak, this is the time to raise your hand, and Michael will recognize you.
Looks like we have a couple people. We'll start with Doug Johnston. Doug, go ahead and unmute yourself.
And so, Michael, this
Thank
is
you.
that we have a presentation that we can play as well.
Cool. I'll bring up the PowerPoint, and Doug, just let me know when you want me to go from slide to slide.
Thank you. I just opened the first one.
Okay.
I thought this would keep me under 2 minutes, so we'll put a stopwatch on it.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, if you can maybe maximize it, there you go.
Right. The master plan is fabulous. Functional, connectivity, appearance. It's as good as the Greenway. And the Greenway, my favorite thing to say is any spot on it, if you stop and look ahead or behind or at either side, it's green. It's a remarkable piece of landscape. There isn't anything like it. It's uninterrupted for the most part, and it's really, really unique. It sort of makes me think that we're at a wonderful moment, and this committee board is at a great point that not too many professionals and advocates can ever claim that they can be part of something like the Greenway and what this bond issue and master plan is going to make it be. It's Blue Ridge quality for cyclers and walkers, I guess, in the Piedmont instead of the Blue Ridge, but it's definitely top notch. But we can't take its appearance for granted. So let's look at the next slide, next 4 slides actually. And these are not situations where people wanted to make the Greenway ugly. They wanted to have some security and seclusion. So next slide, just a different perspective on this one. We'll put, and then the next slide. This is where development got a little ahead of thinking about the Greenway. That's a garage where a car is going to drive up next to the Greenway to get into it. Next slide, please. And there's another one, a building beginning down there. So these would be challenging places to fix, but that could happen. And particularly in this one here, I think it's a developer that'll really has changed its perspective on its role in this particular development. And we can expect a real amount of collaboration, if you remember the first slide, and reciprocity in looking at the Greenway. These are examples we should notice, but we don't need to worry about them. They'll have their chance to be repaired, because we can, even though in a perverse way they can motivate us, that's not the approach to the ultimate consistent and beautiful Greenway that we want. Next slide, please. There's another one. I'm sorry, I forgot to take that one out, but that's a more typical backyard, and there are precious few of those. Next slide. Now we're getting to the Greenway that we really have come to know and love. This is just down from the development site that I showed you earlier. Next slide, please. More typical Greenway. I don't think the Blue Ridge Parkway has anything to beat that. Next slide, please. we added our own little touch there. Dick's Park, which has its, we're not in competition with Dick's Park, by the way, and that's a great thing, but we certainly have done a wonderful reflection of its great sunflower thing. Next slide, please. And that's what we want to do. My little slogan is keep greenways green. Make sure they're protected, preserved, and promoted reciprocally and collaboratively. And the first step in that is funding. And I hope in the bond issue or otherwise, there'll be funding for a visual resource survey and a design and installation of a landscape prototype in those isolated residential or development projects. Find in the bond issue or otherwise funding to show everybody how easy it's going to be and how beautiful and how together we can make this effort of without provoking resistance and relying largely on collaborative efforts to have a place where everyone finds desirable from a business development point of view and from a residential one. Thanks. I hope that's not too much over 3 minutes. And thanks, Stephen, for the slide help there.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate the comments. And I hope you're able to stay and watch the rest of the meeting because we do have an update on the Greenway Master Plan, focusing on the public input in particular. Thanks as always for your comments.
And we have one more person who'd like to make a comment. Lena, please unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Thanks. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Wake Audubon Society. I recognize that parks and this board are not directly involved in rezoning cases. However, a site directly across the Neuse River from Horseshoe Farm Nature Preserve will potentially have negative impacts on the preserve and the Neuse River if rezoning case Z40-21 is approved by the City Council. We wanted to let you know Wake Audubon opposes the rezoning of this 41.42 acre parcel. The request is to rezone from residential 4 to residential mixed use, 4 stories, limited parking, conditional use with 375 living units. Wake Audubon has a long history with Horseshoe Farm from the original planning in 2006 to present. We were one of 9 community groups and organizations that prevailed and ultimately resulted in the City Council defining nature preserves and other categories for parks beyond active recreation. Our members have birded at Horseshoe for over 15 years or over these 15 years, and 147 species of birds have been identified in the park. The North Carolina Natural Heritage Program designated the floodplain forest around Horseshoe as a natural heritage natural area, formerly a significant natural heritage area. It provides important habitat for birds and many other species. The 2030 Comprehensive Plan, Section 8, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space states, the backbone of the capital area greenway system are the riparian greenway corridors, lands adjacent to the waterways and tributaries of Walnut Creek, Crabtree Creek, and the Neuse River, which protect aquatic habitat, provide wildlife corridors, prevent development of ecologically sensitive lands, and mitigate potential flood damage. We are in opposition to this rezoning based on this statement and multiple other sections of the comprehensive plan that we believe are not being considered in this rezoning request. Specifically, our concerns are for runoff into wetlands in the Neuse River, lighting, native plants, and the wildlife corridor itself. We're also working with other groups to oppose this rezoning. Wake Audubon will be providing details to our members through our newsletter and mailing list. You can contact us through the website wakeaudubon.org and also subscribe to the free electronic newsletter that we have using the resources drop-down menu on the website. You can follow our activities in opposition to this rezoning at that location. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hey, sorry, I didn't catch which case that was. Can you repeat
It's,
it?
yes,
Z-
it's rezoning case Z-40-21.
21. Okay, thanks.
Does anyone have any questions for either of the folks that came to speak? Any follow-up? Okay. Great.
What is the current status of the case? And I'm not sure, forgive me if I'm not following protocol when I'm asking the question, if I'm supposed to say something, but I just wanted to understand what is the current status of that rezoning case?
This is Oscar Carmine. I can go ahead and let you know that it is an action item at the upcoming November 2nd City Council meeting. So the public comment period, I believe, has already closed for that particular case. And so now it's in council's hands to just deliberate as an action item.
So Oscar, has it already gone through planning commission then and been approved?
Yes, it has passed planning commission and now it's in council's queue.
Gotcha. Okay. Good question, Malay. All right.
Thank you all.
Good. Well, moving on, next on the agenda. And by the way, if anyone had any comments about anything else on the agenda other than the new renaming at Lions Park, this is the time to speak if anyone else has anything else they would like to say. Okay. Michael, do you see anyone else?
I do not see any other hands up.
Oh,
Nope.
great. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay. So next on the agenda, we have the Raleigh Youth Council, Sydney, Eugene, and Carmen.
Hi, it's just Eugene tonight, so Sydney's not here.
Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Eugene, and I'm with the Raleigh Youth Council to give a short debrief on things we've done this past month and things we plan on doing in the future. So in this past month of September, we had a few community service events. Firstly, we had a park cleanup at Chavis Park, and we also had an invasive species removal at Greenway Park. Recently, we were actually informed that we did a very successful job at the invasive species removal, and we ended up removing over 100 tree trunks in the area. And we're trying to do a similar event in the future, probably in November, since we were able to do so much in that cleanup. And then 2 weeks ago, we had an entrepreneurship meeting where the members of our council basically learned about how to market products and how to create businesses to cater to specific groups of people and demographics. And we did this in a Shark Tank manner, and it ended up being a very fun meeting. In the upcoming weeks, we'll also be preparing for our annual Toys from Teens drive, and we'll be collecting toy donations. If anyone's interested in donating toys for this cause, we'd be happy to come and collect them. That's all. Thank you guys so much.
Sorry, I wasn't ready with my unmute. Thank you, Eugene. And just a question, where do those toys go? How do you, what's your target audience, I guess? How do you find folks?
So basically every year around Christmas time, we have a very big event in Raleigh. And I can't remember the exact name, but we have it at Roberts Park every year. And basically what we have, well, at least for last year, we had kids from the Raleigh area come around so that they could pick up these toys that other people donated. So it's going to a good place.
So it's in the community and the kids can come and choose their toy. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Eugene?
Sorry, this is Malay again. I missed Eugene's comment as to where we can drop off toys.
I'll help him out with that one. So we, if you all collect toys, we can coordinate a place to kind of pick them all up together. The council is responsible for reaching out to their communities, and then they bring them back to the meetings. And then we also have some other locations that we in the past have had drop-offs. Some of the community centers will let us put boxes in their community centers. But if you all just reach out to me, we can coordinate a place to collect toys if you all are willing to donate. We'll figure something out.
Great, thank you. Marcia, I saw your hand up. Did you have a question?
I just wanted to give Eugene a pat on the back. He did a great report, and what good work for cleaning up those invasive species. Which, yay, thank you.
Absolutely. Way to go. Thanks, Marcia. Great. We'll see no other comments or questions. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Lions Park Gym naming request. Oscar.
Yes, good afternoon. We have Anthony Lucas here, who's going to provide us some information on the naming request that he's bringing forward to name the gym at Lions Park to the Nate McMillan Gym at Lions Park. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Lucas to give us a little bit more background on his naming request.
Thank you, Mr. Oscar, and to the committee, the board. Thank y'all so very, very much for allowing me to come before you this evening. I know that you guys are very, very busy, so I won't be very long, but I really, really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. This proposal, if you will, is in reference to Nate McMillan, not taking anything from the gym or Lions Park, if you will, but adding to it. What I'm proposing is that if we could name it the Nate McMillan Gym at Lions Park Community Center. So we don't really take anything away from Nate McMillan, but what we'll do is just add to it. And I have a video slide that my beautiful wife is with me this evening. She's gonna tag team it with me. So at this time, I think, sweetheart, you want to go ahead and play the slide, and I'll read it really, really quick. I don't know how much time I have, but I won't be before you long.
That's fine. Go ahead. Michael, is he able to just share his screen?
She should be able to, yeah. If you can, if you just hit the share screen at the bottom of your Zoom window there and select the screen you want to share, it should automatically pop up.
You hear that, sweetheart? Oh, wow. Okay, let's see here. But I guess I can talk a little bit while she get it together. So pretty much, Nate, he's an NBA, he was an NBA player as well as coach. He and I grew up in the Raleigh North Lions Park community. There, Lions Park was like a refuge to us. We were able to go there every day almost, and just find a safe place in the midst of all the things that were going on when we were growing up. And some of those directors were there. They encouraged us to stay out of trouble. Freddie Hicks, Percy Hinton, Eve, Doug Sutton, and so I can go on and on and on. But Nate, he has done so much for the community, the Lions Park, Raleigh North community, and a lot of people don't know. Even when he started his basketball career with the NBA, Nate started giving back in 1989, you know. But these last 15 years, he's been more visible, you know, in the community doing things. He's also helped, you know, with Thanksgiving dinners, if you will, and Christmas tours for the kids. And so Nate to the community is like a beacon of hope. You know, a lot of times these kids, they don't know what to look for or where to look for it at, you know, but they'll run to the gym, you know what I mean? Or the boys club or the girls club. And so my thinking, the Lord put it in my spirit to get something or do something that the kids can gravitate to, something positive. Someone has been working hard. Someone has gone through the experiences that they're going through right now, you know, and someone they can approach. A lot of times you can't approach some of these people with status, so to speak. And so Nate is the type of person that will get on his knees. He'll help go down to the creek right behind Lions Park, help clean that out. He'll feed the homeless. You know, he'll help a kid with schoolwork. And so I just want to just introduce this to the committee. And again, we're not trying to take anything away from Lions Park. I know the history. Nate knows the history. We know about the Lions Club and all of that. We know the struggles that we've had in that community. And we look around the city and you see things are changing. Things are changing drastically. Nate, he played in J.C. Park. He played at Method. He played in Chavis Heights, of course, Lions Park. My wife has the slide up now. I'm sorry. So I'll start right here. Sweetheart. Shawan College. After not being heavily recruited, Nate McMillan decided to attend Shawan College, which was Shawan Junior College at that time. Now I think it's a 4-year college, and played basketball. McMillan played at Shawan for 2 seasons where he was a JUCO All-American and left following the 1983-84 season. Nate McMillan transferred to NC State to play under Jim Valvano. After his time at Shawan, McMillan helped NC State go back-to-back Elite Eight in the 1985-86 seasons in the NCAA tournament. He averaged 8.5 points a game, 5.1 rebound, and 6.0 assists per game. Seattle Supersonics player. Nick McMillan was drafted 60th overall in the 1986 NBA draft to the Seattle Supersonics. During McMillan's rookie year, he's recorded 25 assists in a game versus the Los Angeles Clippers, which is tied for all-time rookie assists in a game. His career average was 5.9 points per game, 6.1 assists per game, and 1.9 steals per game. He also has a park named after him in Seattle. Nate McMillan was well regarded in Seattle, in the Seattle community, and he was given the nickname Mr. Sonic. That is now the Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder that Westbrook used to play for and Durant used to play for. They transferred the NBA team from Seattle to Oklahoma City. Okay, Nate McMillan, I'm sorry. Okay, Seattle Supersonic coach. In 2000, Nate began coaching for the team that he had played his entire career for. Portland Trailblazers coach. Nate McMillan began coaching Portland Trailblazers in 2005, and his tenure ended in 2012. Indiana Pacer coach. McMillan served as a coach for the Pacers from 2016 to 2020. Atlanta Hawks coach. Currently, McMillan is head coach of the Atlanta Hawks. He became an interim head coach after the Hawks let Lloyd Pierce go. After McMillan was named as coach, the Hawks went from the team with the worst record in the NBA to the team that made all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals with several players hurt or injured. Nate also was a coach with the U.S. Olympic team. McMillan was on the coaching staff for the USA Olympic team, a basketball team, in 2006 through 2008 and 2012 seasons, winning 2 gold medals and a bronze. That's Coach Krzyzewski beside him, and Coach Krzyzewski, Boeheim, and D'Antoni. Those were the coaches for the Olympic team. The U.S. team, so he represented the United States of America. That is awesome. That is awesome. Giving back. This is what I was talking about earlier before my wife came up with the slides. Giving back. This guy gives back tremendously. He doesn't want anybody to know, but he does it from the goodness of his heart. Nate McMillan has given his time, talents, and resources to the Lions Park community. He has done this since 1989. He has been more involved and visible in the Lions Park community over the last 15 years. He is also assistant Kevin Bobbitt. I don't know if you guys know anything about Kevin Bobbitt. He's coming up with programs. He was incarcerated, but he got out and he turned his life around, and he's trying to do positive things. And Nate has assisted him in some of them, his endeavors. He and others are trying to make a difference in the lives in the Raleigh North Lions Park community. Nate has come back to make sure the kids have what they need to be successful in school. He has also provided Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas toys to those who are in the Lions Park Raleigh North apartment community. It is a blessing to be a blessing. And that's some of the community shots there. I had a video for you guys, but I guess since it took a little while to get back up and running, I guess I'll just leave that out. That's my beautiful wife right there. I don't know if y'all can see on the screen. But so what we're asking is that the name be named, the gym be named the Nate McMillan Gym at Lions Park Community Center, not taking anything from Lions Park, and then I'll give you, for instance, I remember when the BMX track came, it was like, man, they taking our gym, or they doing this and they doing that, what is going on? But when it came and the community embraced it, I rode on the track, my friends rode on the track, their kids rode on the track, and the track is known nationally, so that's all I'm trying to do. That's all we want to do. We want to give back to the community. We don't want to take nothing from it. It will still be Lions Park, but I think if we add Nate, that's something that the community is tangible. They can touch, they can feel, they can see, and also in saying that, Nate McMillan wore the number 10 on his jersey. My thinking is that they have 10 computers, whether it be laptops or desktops, set up in a space so kids can come and do their homework, or even parents. Some of the parents over there don't have access to internet, and so I'm just thinking about what we can do to bring hope to the community, to encourage the community, to strengthen the community, and get rid of all this hate that we got going on. It's time out for that. We need to love on each other, celebrate each other, and encourage each other. So without showing that video, that's where I'm at right now, and that's my presentation. And that's my grandson.
Hey, Andrew, this is Kendall Harris. I am originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. I went to Broughton High School. My cousin played at Chowan. He was better than Nate, but you don't have to justify to anybody the work that Nate McMillan, you're justifying. You don't have to justify to anybody what Nate McMillan has done in Raleigh, North Carolina. One, I've done a lot of work with Kevin Bobbitt. I don't justify people when people have done right. Nate has been a phenomenal guy. He's paved the way. He played the game. He has turned around NBA players. He has turned around organizations. So don't feel like you got to justify to anybody up on here or renaming something that Nate has given back, not only his time, his talent, he's given back also financially. Jim Valvano will tell you today, if he was alive, that Nate McMillan was one of the best players and community leaders that he ever coached. He could not have the grades when he went to Enloe. He went to Chowan. Bob Burke, who was the coach then.
Yes, that's right.
Nate McMillan. Nate went to state and he got drafted. He understood it. And he has now been in the NBA, but he also come back to Lion Park, grew up in Raleigh North. For those that are on here that don't know about Raleigh North up there in that area, he has done it. So don't justify to anybody your passion and your drive of Nate McMillan. You have my full support, my end, originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, that went to Broughton High School with Gary Madison. Make sure I'm clear on that. But understand, don't justify your passion to anybody, the work that Nate has done, because it speaks for itself, period.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. And I appreciate, I agree. you don't have to justify, but I appreciate all the information you presented, because some of us didn't know about all of it. So that was really helpful to see. So thank you. And Rashawn, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off what Kendall said. Mr. Lucas, first off, I want to say phenomenal presentation on Mr. Nate McMillan. I personally know Nate McMillan as well.
Thank you.
He is a pillar in the community. So he is one of those men that a lot of people, in particular the Black community, look up to a lot, like on the level of Lavelle Moulton and PJ Tucker. I'm a Raleigh native as well, so I grew up idolizing Nate McMillan, PJ Tucker, and a lot of other these phenomenal men that grew up in the Raleigh community as well. Just like Kendall said, I'm all on board about, you know, adding his name to the park, because just as something simple as that, as adding his name to this park or his physical presence being there, draws attention to Lions Park, more attention to Lions Park, but also draws a lot of more kids to Lions Park. You're talking about a neighborhood literally down the street, Section 8 housing, where a lot of kids look up to this man. And he supported his community for years. So, I mean, he's just done a lot of things for the community that, you know, a lot of people don't even really see or notice, because he's one of those guys, he don't put it out there a lot. But like Nate said, Mr. Lucas, you don't have to justify anything. Nate work speaks for itself. And I just wanted to reiterate that to everybody that this is a phenomenal thing that's being brought up in front of us. And I think we all need to jump on board with it. So.
Thank you so much.
Rashawn. Dr. Love, I see your hand.
I appreciate Mr. Lucas bringing this information to us. I want to tell you that Nate was one of my students, that I watched him grow and develop at NC State. I'm very proud of all the things that he has done. He and the coach at Central provided backpacks for students in Southeast Raleigh, and our church was one of the recipients of those backpacks. So I'm on board.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. He is a great ambassador. He really is.
Thank you all for the comments, and Mr. Lucas, thank you for bringing that forward. I just want to remind the board of our process for naming requests. So this is the meeting where it's presented to us. The next meeting in November, we will discuss more, and if there's no opposition, then at our meeting in December, we will vote on whether or not we will approve the naming request. And I also want to point out that this is one of the first naming requests under the new rules where they had to get 100 people to sign the petition. So they did receive that 100. Okay.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, guys. And also, again, if I could just add, Nate, he's a really, really good friend of mine, family friend, and he's a genuine person. And also, if you guys get a moment, you can check him out tonight. They play tonight. And Dr. Love, I'll let him know I spoke with you tonight. And thank you all. And Miss Jennifer, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thanks.
Do you guys need any questions from me? We're good.
Only thing he got to do now is win the NBA championship, then he can close the whole deal. Till he does that, then we'll talk about it.
Well, you know what? I was waiting to go to the finals this past season, but it didn't happen. But it's gonna happen soon.
It might happen.
Thank you, guys.
No pressure.
Thank you so much, Kendall.
All right. Thanks
God
very
bless you
much.
all.
All right. So moving on.
One more thing. I'm sorry. I want to thank Giovanna Harris and Kent and Mr. Oscar and all of you guys. You guys do phenomenal work throughout the city. God bless you all. Take care. Be safe.
I agree. Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Great. Very, very good. Next on the agenda, we have a couple of presentations. So the first one is on the invasive program with Lee and Owen, I believe. Let's see, are they up? Here we go.
Okay, good evening, Advisory Board. Thank you so much for inviting us out here. And I want to thank Anthony for giving me that great glimpse into the history of Raleigh And I want to thank Doug, Lena, and Eugene for leading us into this topic. We're so happy to have supportive members of our community. So we're here to discuss an urgent need to protect the remaining natural resources in the city of Raleigh. As two people actively working on natural resource management on our properties, we are here to report that our forests, wetlands, and meadows are rapidly degrading, and that now is the time to scale up a citywide effort to protect our remaining natural resources. So natural resource management in our 10,000 acres of parkland is consistently and strongly addressed as a priority across the 2030 comp plan, City Raleigh strategic plan, the PRCR system plan, and the upcoming Greenway master plan. Natural resources are our wetlands, forests, and meadows that were intentionally protected from development. We are fortunate to have so much public land woven into our city. This is what makes us the city within a park and the city of Oaks. These natural areas provide ecosystem services that improve. Oh, sorry. Let me turn on my camera. Start video. Thank you. Oh, that's better. Hey, guys. So these services pay yearly dividends valued at thousands of dollars per acre. The cost to create a new forest is about $100,000 per acre. So we are responsible as Parks Division for about a $500 million public asset that provides tens of millions of dollars of benefits per year. We should reinvest in these natural resources before they further degrade and lose value. This is a map of Raleigh on the right. It's the USGS land cover data. The pink through red colors are the developed areas, and the greens are the remaining forest. So these data show that over the last 18 years, Raleigh has developed 7,000 acres of forest. And thanks to Lena for pointing out that we might lose another 40 acres right along the Neuse River. This is a 28% loss. There's only 17,000 acres of forest remaining in the city. And the City of Raleigh Parks Department is responsible for 6,140 acres of this forest. That's 35%. The public entrusted us to preserve these forests and open areas in perpetuity for the benefit and enjoyment of all. But at our current level of funding and support, we are not capable of protecting these natural resources.
Invasive species are the second biggest threat to ecosystems after habitat loss, and urban forests are extremely vulnerable to non-native plant invasion. To an ecosystem, there is not much difference whether you pave it or invade it. The consequences are the same. Invasive plants are fast-growing opportunists that thrive on disturbance, whether it's natural disturbance like a tornado or human disturbance like a road widening project. Invasive plants prevent the regeneration of forests, and invasive management is the best tree protection. Fragmentation reduces forest resilience by leaving the forest vulnerable to plant invasion and harmful environmental conditions. As the trees succumb, the invasion continues throughout the ecosystem, resulting in a 6 to 8 foot shrub vine layer, not forest. All of our parks and greenways are fragments. Wind, water, and animals naturally distribute seed and other propagules into green spaces where they exploit disturbed and exposed areas. Dirty equipment, recreational gear, illegal dumping, and neighboring infestations also play a large role. The Walnut Creek Wetland Park is a long-suffering example of environmental injustice and disturbance. This wetland forest suffers tree loss due to emerald ash borer that is rapidly replaced with invasive privet. Privet is an evergreen shrub that also lines many of our greenways, providing cover for illicit and illegal activities. This heat map produced during a study by North Carolina State University shows the intensity of the privet infestation at the park. Areas with no points were simply too dense to enter. Doesn't mean there's not privet there, they just couldn't get in there to map it. Removing the privet then opens up the property to a host of other, even harder to control pests like kudzu, hopvine, and fig buttercup. It cannot be overstated that the work is never finished. It is ongoing. There are many different landholders with many different objectives, from utility easements to parks, corporate campuses to schools. There are bits of forest throughout the city, but we are all affected by the quality, safety, and benefits of the forest. We have really strong land management plans with loads of lovely words out there, and having a plan is really great, but implementing the plan is vital. Even with all of our best efforts, We are currently only managing problems in about 4% of city-owned forests. It's extremely frustrating to not accomplish and protect more of our assets. The invasive species program is 1 full-time and 1 part-time staff for all parks and other City of Raleigh owned and controlled properties. Responsibilities of this position are massive, including invasive management, education and outreach, support of natural resource section, volunteer recruitment and events, identifying and gaining grant opportunities, development of management plans, maintaining diverse partnerships, marketing and leadership or oversight of special teams and contractors. It's a job that feels very much like PTSD. That said, even a highly degraded urban site can be hiding some established forest. We just have to uncover it.
So on our side, we have taken time from our maintenance schedule this past year to assess the scale and urgency of the invasive plant problem on our greenways and to demonstrate that city staff are capable of monitoring and implementing meaningful management. Last year, I presented the findings from our Greenway corridor invasive survey, and since then I priced out that to hire a contractor to conduct this restoration work would carry an average cost of $2,600 per acre. The results from our Privet survey agree with 2 sets of doctoral research performed by ecologists in our forests within the past 5 years. These scientists also reported that on average, most woody plants in our understories are invasive, with privet being the most common. So we, let's kick it over. There we go. So we followed best management practices to control early infestations of privet in about 50 acres of forest at an investment of only $300 per acre, whereas a contractor was pricing out as $740 per acre. And our work this past winter prevented this problem from becoming exponentially more expensive. We've also been implementing control efforts on 90 wisteria and kudzu infestations covering 50 acres of city forests at an investment of $600 per acre, whereas a contractor would be $2,230 per acre. But we determined that at our current operational capacity, we will not be able to eradicate these tree-killing vines. We do have a plan going forward to contain further spread and save many of the trees that are wrapped up in vines. We have been hard at work at removing invasive trees that are rapidly growing due to the edge effect along trail corridors, but again, we're just scratching the surface. We demonstrated that it is possible to convert invasive Lespedeza on the sewer easements that our greenways are on to native grasses and wildflowers at a cost of about $300 per acre, whereas the contractor is about 3 times that. So we aren't fixing the problem. What we're doing is we're demonstrating the solution, the work that needs to be done. The true protection of our natural resources will require critical investment by the city. The sooner we act, the further our investment will go. We can flatten the invasion curve with meaningful intervention.
Restoration is the last option. As Owen reported, it is far easier and much less expensive to catch an infestation early than to try and replicate a forest. That's a resource that once lost, it's gone forever. Other infrastructure such as ball fields or community centers can be easily rehabbed if left unmanaged, but you cannot go to Lowe's and purchase an ecosystem. We should prioritize preservation of these resources in the same way that we do historic buildings that we also cannot replace. Everyone wants to plant a tree, but it is a greater thing to protect the ones that we have. Trees plant themselves naturally and cost ourselves nothing while doing it.
So I found 2 comparable cities, Austin, Texas, and Portland, Oregon. They are currently leading the nation in taking a proactive, coordinated approach to addressing these threats posed by invasive species.
I'm going to Austin, y'all.
So let's not do that. Let's stay here. Let's research and use their models to become leaders of natural resource management in our region.
Please don't leave, Lee.
We need to act now. As our city becomes more densely developed, our forests become more important. For the past 2 years, we have led youth conservation corps teams, creating the next generation of conservation professionals. Let's put those guys to work. We also need to think about devising an incentive program for private landholders. While we hold 1/3 of Raleigh's forests, we all have a stake in what happens to all of Raleigh's forests. Let's leave a legacy. And we're very excited to invite you all to a tour of Buckeye Greenway Trail to see some of our management techniques in action. Buckeye is a 188-acre parcel of primarily wetland forest inside the 440 Beltline. We'll be joined by several local conservation experts. We will ride down the Greenway to several key sites, stop for refreshments at Lockwood Mini Park, and enjoy spring on Raleigh's Greenway system. Stay tuned for details.
So we hope it caught your attention, and I want to thank you all so much for your time. We're going to keep pushing this momentum. And if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them, follow up in emails, whatever it takes.
Thank you both. Your presentations are always extremely informative and a little bit shocking, to tell you the truth, but it's good. Does anyone, I guess if you could take the presentation down, then I can see everybody better.
We're working on it.
Trying as hard as I can.
No worries.
Here it is.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Van.
Yeah, that presentation was great. And as an avid user of the Greenway, I almost daily see what you're talking about. I actually live right near the Greenway that runs along Western and then goes through NC State's campus, and I see kudzu and invasive species all the time. What, I guess you make a great point. There's preventing it, and then there's restoring it and having to bring it back. And we know which one is a lot more expensive. But how do you prevent kudzu from growing, or how is it just a matter of catching it early and removing it, or are there other things? I don't even know all the species. I would never protect kudzu. Just I know because kudzu feels like it can grow out of a tar pit. Are there other ways? Just asking for a little bit of education on that.
Early detection and rapid response is really ideal. However,
Okay.
that requires having a lot of eyes on the ground, monitoring and reporting, and then acting immediately. We have very few sites where that's even an option anymore. We are mostly invaded. So we are now playing catch up to get removals done as quickly as possible to save as much as we can. Again, with our limited resources and small programs and 10,000 acres, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm hearing you say is it's eyes on the ground. So looking at wherever there are invasive species and then trying to identify it and remove it as fast as possible.
Yes, yeah, hopefully before the plant can mature to where it is setting seed.
Yeah.
That's a little
Makes
easier
sense.
to say when you're speaking about tree species that take a few years to mature and reproduce. It's a lot harder in cases like Japanese stiltgrass, which is an annual plant and produces thousands of seed per plant every year.
Mm-hmm. So what's the answer, guys?
Right.
You know, are we looking for expanding this department, or are we looking for getting a lot more volunteers? All of the above?
So volunteers are useful, but they're sort of a blunt instrument. We don't often get a team of field-trained botanists that can recognize and identify every single invasive plant species. We do need more resources. We need more staff. We need more trained, qualified staff with strong plant identification skills and that can run a chainsaw, that can apply herbicides, that can help stop this before it gets so far that we don't have anything left to say.
Mm-hmm.
Those two cities, Austin and Portland, they have a really great model. And like you said, it's a multifaceted, large partnership sort of model. Since these plants don't cross, these plants are happy to cross property lines. So yeah, I think it really starts with monitoring, and there's a lot of our monitoring and mapping. There's a lot of areas, and the Neuse River Trail alone is 1,000 acres of easements and property. So getting in there and having staff monitoring yearly to do that early detection, rapid response. That's the first step of what's actually happening on the ground.
And we are trying to do some of that following the pre-development plans that have been created for some of our undeveloped properties, where we're going in and we're trying to really understand what we have and start to go ahead and take care of those infestations early. So those are places where we do have an opportunity to implement that early detection and rapid response.
Malay, I see you have a question.
Yeah, so in your presentation, the Austin plan and the Portland plan were roughly around $2 to $2.5 million in terms of budget. What is your current operating budget, and what is the ask in terms of, to Jennifer's point, I understand you guys are saying we need more resources, but in what capacity are you guys asking for resources? Is it a budget increase, and if so, by what amount?
I can take this one, guys. Hi, Malay. I'm Sally Thigpen. I'm one of the assistant directors, and I'm work with maintenance and operations. So it's great to meet you. And I'm fortunate to work with these professionals, Lee and Owen, and they are really knocking it out of the park in terms of this program and the way they've built it and the creativity that they've brought behind it. So much of the work they do is just looking to partners and finding more creative ways to do this work. I'm not directly answering your question, but I do just want to let you know that we've diverted some resources to try and help them grow. And this Youth Conservation Corps is one of the ways that we're doing it, and they're just getting off the ground, and we're hoping that we can really leverage that program to achieve more in the realm of invasive species management. From a budget standpoint, it's really just staff. They have a very small materials and supply budget, but that's really it. We are able to cobble together some dollars each year for a small contract, and we'll pull in a contractor to help with some of the more difficult areas where we need heavy equipment. But otherwise, we're tackling it in-house with the resources that we have available. So that number is out there, although I don't know, I think that there's different ways we could ask that question and share that information, because I think there's multiple ways that we can tackle it. So I think I'm going to stop short of saying $2.5 million. But really, yeah. But yes, that they would definitely benefit from having more resources.
And Sally, what's the operating budget right now?
It's really just for the invasive species program, it's just one full-time position and their part-time position. So salaries, and then a small amount for, like I said, materials and supplies.
Okay.
Sally, Owen, and Lee, one other quick follow-up question. Am I understanding right that all the greenways that we have created that help us enjoy nature also, do they create a rift in the ecosystem that allows invasive species to get in through that open space? Or is this just something that happens, it just happens in any forest? Or does that make sense? Does the Greenway kind of create almost like a cut on your arm, if you will, right? And then you can get bacteria infection through your cut. Otherwise, your skin is sealed up. Sorry to be, that may have sounded morbid. I wasn't trying to be.
No, that was a great metaphor, actually.
Yeah, you got that right. It's a wound and it's becoming infected. So the Greenway is basically at this point all edge habitat. So it's very vulnerable. So a larger patch of woods like Forest Ridge, that's 500 acres basically intact. That one is going to have less problems. There's less opportunities for invasion, but we have edges from building the Greenway, but also utilities and the surrounding development.
Makes sense.
So you're right. We sort of cause the problem, but we can also create the solution.
And all of our parks are fragmented as well. They're not contiguous acres of forest.
Right. Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Didn't have a question. I just wanted to ask if, I guess it is a question. Is this something that the sustainability Wildlife and Urban Trees Committee could talk about in one of our committee meetings? It seems appropriate.
Yeah, so Oscar, this isn't something that's specifically on our work plan, but I was curious about that as well.
I mean, if it's up to the board just to kind of get a little bit more information on this particular topic, I don't see why it can't be explored a little bit more in depth.
What if we want to study it and come up with a recommendation? Is that something that we could do?
I'm not sure about a recommendation. I do know that, you know, since staffing is primarily the main issue that we are facing here, that is going to be a budgetary request and a budgetary impact. And I know at least the last two budget years that we've worked through, there has really been no new positions created, other than those that are associated with new facility development. So it just kind of depends on the forecasting for upcoming budget years. We'll kind of really have to keep an eye and pulse on how that's looking. And we can definitely keep this ask in our back pocket for future consideration by council.
Okay.
But it definitely is, it's high on our radar. And I do want to say that both Lee, Owen, and the rest of the parks team, they you give them a penny, they make $100 out of it. They do such a fantastic job, not only internally with their limited existing resources staff-wise, but also with the work they do with volunteers. I mean, they get a volunteer off the street, and before the end of the day, that volunteer knows everything about invasive species and how to remove it and how to prevent it from growing back up. So they really take it from an education standpoint, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of advocates out there in the community that are really going to probably support their work moving forward.
Thank you. Brad and then Beverly.
Hey, yeah, this is a great presentation. I just wanted to applaud, because this is something I think I've been on the board a long time, and this is something that we've been asking for, is presentations like this that are very clear that there is a resource limitation, so that we can communicate to our council members and the relationships that we have that there's a gap here. And that isn't something we historically have necessarily gotten in terms of presentations. Sometimes it's sort of like, things aren't great, but it's okay. And I just really appreciate that, like, this is a very specific ask, particularly in an area where, like, it isn't necessarily something the council would necessarily be aware of as a need for resources. And it's actually a relatively small ask in terms of the grand scheme of things. So anyway, I just wanted to applaud that and highlight that this is awesome. It makes the board more valuable if we can hear that there's a resource gap that exists. So anyway, that's all.
Agree, Brad. That's a great point.
Well said, Brad.
Thank you.
What's behind you 100%.
Yeah.
You finally made some sense. This shit not messing.
Thanks, Brad. Beverly, go ahead.
Well, I sort of want to piggyback on what Brad said, and also, Oscar, while taking a penny and making it into $100 worth of value, and as much as I believe in the help and of volunteers, and going to what Sally said about budget, I'm going to say if we have a staff of 1.5 people, we're spending less than $200,000 on this invasive species removal. And so compared to these other cities that, I mean, we're just at a really minuscule level, and we need to take this further. And I know as a staff, you all are looking at what to do with the penny that council did allocate to us. And I would say this is a really, I mean, I'm sure there are many competing needs, because we really have a lot of needs in all our greenways and parks. But I would say this is going to be one of those things that up there, and look forward to you educating us. I will say, even though I've just come to the visual part of the meeting, I have been listening to the whole meeting the whole time, and really enjoyed and appreciated the Nate McMillan presentation, etc. So glad to be back with you all.
Thanks, Beverly. Owen and Lee, did you want to talk? Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. I want to follow up, Jennifer, on bringing this to the SWAT committee. I love being in the field, but I would be happy to spend weeks in the office fleshing out these details if we know that it's going to advance this. And
He would too.
yeah, and then we also understand this is a pretty wild ask to make considering the current economic climate, but there are some steps that we can take, like planning, that don't require money. So there's some policy changes that we could look into strengthening the UDOs, but we can also start getting these different departments in the room to start discussing, because that's one big component of Austin and Portland is it's interdepartmental. They got public works, they got water, stormwater, RPD. Everyone's in there like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What can we all do together? So we can do a lot of stuff now that doesn't require additional staff, really start planning and preparing for that next cycle of funding.
I appreciate that, those comments. Sally, as far as, earlier we had the Wake Audubon woman, speaking with them. Do you guys partner with those kinds of groups that are very, like-minded and have volunteers come out and maybe even resources, funding resources? Is that something that's been done?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jennifer. Scott was reminding me, not that I forgot, but his whole team, his resources team, also very strongly partners with the Invasive Species Program. So I think there are opportunities that we can still explore. And yes, we do work with Wake Nature, but I think that there is opportunity to do that more.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any other questions or comments about this presentation? Okay, seeing none. Thank you all very much for the presentation, and I think it makes sense.
Sorry, I just had one quick last question on this. Have we explored any avenues of private funding to help with this? As in, is there corporate funding or anything of that can potentially help here?
So we're constantly looking for grant opportunities and applying for grant funding. Most of that money is tied to a tree planting. So you do like an invasive removal and then you get money to do a tree planting. And some of it has to do with environmental justice causes as well. So there are opportunities out there. And we're currently exploring the opportunity for corporate sponsorship of natural protected areas. So a corporate sponsorship and some funding from that could go towards helping management efforts.
Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you all. And Marcia, I think we should look at if you want to include them on your next committee meeting for the SWAT meeting, how to incorporate that. Makes sense. Okay. Thank you all again. Next presentation is on the Greenway Master Plan, an update there on the public input process. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. So during last month's Parks Board meeting, we provided pretty extensive update on all of the progress that had been made on the Greenway Master Plan from when it kicked off in January of 2020 until September. And at that time, we were sort of in the middle of our third round of public outreach for the project. And that public outreach was focused on our first draft of the plan that the public had the opportunity to review. So tonight we have Jared Draper with Tool Design here to give everyone an update on what we heard through that outreach process and on next steps with the project. So Jared.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Just gonna share my screen. Let me know when you can see. Chris?
We can see, yep.
All right, perfect. Well, as Chris mentioned, my name is Jared Draper with Tool Design. We've been working and partnering with the city on the Greenway Master Plan update. And so tonight, what we really want to focus on is giving you an update on that phase 3. We just finished up phase 3 of public outreach, as well as hit on kind of the timeline of some of the next steps. So if you'll remember, We had 3 phases of public outreach. The first phase was really to listen. It's where we had planned on several in-person events. COVID kind of changed some of our plans, but we had thousands of participants online, started engaging some community-based organizations. Phase 2 was focusing on updating the public, as well as kind of checking in on what we were doing as far as existing conditions, and also the prioritization criteria. And then phase 3 is what we just got done with. We were able to reveal that draft plan, and along with all of the work that had been done and the recommendations. And now it's time to refine based on the comments that they've received. And so what you'll see is that over the course of all of our public outreach, as well as meeting with staff, our steering committee, and just understanding and researching some of the national best practice, it really fed into a variety of recommendation categories that are within the draft plan update currently. So for phase 3, there were a number of things. Chris already mentioned that we met with you as the Parks Board. We also met with our steering committee. We had 3 tabling in-person events, which is kind of a breath of fresh air after the last year. We also held 3 virtual open house meetings with 20 to 30 participants in each meeting, had an online survey with 1,200 plus participants, and we're able to record any of those presentations in virtual meetings to make sure that if someone's schedule didn't work out, they couldn't attend that meeting, they were able to kind of capture that on demand as it was convenient for them. For the online survey itself, it was open from August 27th to September 27th. We advertised on the website as well as through emails. And hopefully you saw some of the yard signs along the trails. I know that I personally saw someone taking a photo of the QR code while I was out one day. With that, we had with the 1,200 participants, we had over 15,000 responses. And then we had over 350 specific comments that didn't fall into an answer to a question necessarily, that we've been working through and kind of reading each one. Just to give some highlights, we asked questions on around prioritization criteria, asking people how people felt, if it was fair, if it was balanced when it came to project implementation. We did have a majority of people say yes, and then obviously some that were unsure and maybe didn't think that it checked all of the boxes. This is another question that we asked about. The question is, which of the following do you see as the most important as the city builds on existing funding mechanisms to kind of construct new trails, as well as reinvest in the system as it is today? I thought it was really interesting that there was a kind of a majority of people that said that there needs to be kind of a shift toward incentivizing private development to build these trails, obviously with the appropriate guidance in place. And then we had a split of where we wanted to leverage funding, grant funding, and donations, really explore the opportunity for other impact fees or other types of development, and then continue working through bond referendums. So again, those are just kind of a highlight of 2 of the questions that we asked in the online survey. As far as the comments, as I mentioned, we had hundreds of comments as well. Those comments really focused on a few kind of key things: communication around volunteering, trail cleanup days, improved signage and wayfinding to help with decision making, maintenance concerns, connections to neighboring communities, removing invasive species, and mitigating conflicts between trail users, specifically between kind of high speed bicyclists and pedestrians. I just want to give a shout out to the presentation that was just given around invasive species and the work that's being done, as well as the Raleigh Youth Council. It sounds like there was a lot of great work that they had done as well. So some of these comments, we have groups that are working on them, and it sounds like more resources are still needed. So that was for phase 3 of public input. As a whole, there's some bigger themes that we've seen through all of these phases, and you'll hear some things that sound a little bit similar to what I just said. But first of all, ensuring that trails serve as a transportation corridor that start to connect people to where they want to go throughout our community. working with developers to construct those new trails, but also making sure that we're protecting existing corridors, because we know that they are very important from an ecological standpoint, environmental standpoint, as our city continues to grow. I think that last presentation highlights some of that. Additionally, constructing new trails is really important, not only to connect to new places, but to fill some of the gaps that may exist. And then making sure that our system is safe, accessible, secure for all trail users is really important. And then finally, again, around signage, making sure that decision points are very clear, making it a little bit more intuitive and logical, but also specifically around those places that are tricky. We know that on-street connections were brought up several different times, and it was mentioned that these are the types of things that really help people explore our community, whether you've lived here for a long time as a resident or it's your first time as a visitor. So with all of the input that we've received, not only through phase 3, but also kind of reviewing it in light of all of the phases, it's time for us to start doing the refinement. We're still working through some of these items, but we know that there are some things that we want to refine absolutely. So first of all, that's to highlight the regional connectivity that the Capital Area Greenway system and how it plays a bigger role. We have the Mountain to Sea Trail, the East Coast Greenway, as well as kind of the planning for the Triangle Bikeway. We also want to make sure that we refine the trail classifications so that we're reflecting the right context and we're emphasizing recreational uses where it's appropriate and kind of where we know that it's going to be. And so kind of refining graphics that they communicate in a way that is really clear and that it gives staff the flexibility to move forward in the most appropriate way in every situation. Additionally, we want to make sure that we clarify the potential for trails in some of those open space corridors, not only the ones that have been previously planned and don't have a trail today, but those that we've added as part of this plan update. We want to update information for trailside hubs, and thinking about opportunities in that public-private partnership arena. And then we also know that we're going to update or provide some guidance around tree buffer areas for trails. And I think that earlier commenter talked about keeping greenways green. And so we want to think about those as, again, another opportunity to add to the work that's already been done in the draft and make it better before it becomes the final version. Lastly, a few of the next steps. Our project team is going to be working from now until the end of this year to really address some of those comments and kind of make the updates that are needed to create what I would say is the draft final version of that plan. In January, we're hoping to not only go to the BPAC, but also the steering committee and the Greenway committee to get endorsement before coming back to you in the Parks Board to have you review and kind of endorse the final plan before we have a council work session that's scheduled in February. And then the fingers are crossed that we are going to be looking at plan adoption in spring of 2022. So as I mentioned, this is really an update on kind of where we're going. We have a lot of work still left to do, and we're looking forward to kind of the next steps. So with that, I will stop sharing and answer any questions that there might be.
Great, thank you, Jared. Does anyone have any questions about the process at this point? Malay and Van, you might have some questions because you haven't seen any of the presentations previously.
I just think it's very informative. So thank you, Jared, for showing that. My question would be in terms of, is this something that has been approved and is this something that is being actioned? And this is just an FYI update, or is this something that is going to be called to action at a later point? And maybe that's just because I don't understand the process yet and I'm still trying to get up to speed.
Yeah, and I can answer that. So we've been receiving sort of informational updates along, and we can of course provide feedback or input as it goes, and then they'll be coming back, I believe it's in January, for our final sort of approval recommendation to council at that time. And so that's when we would make a vote, take action to if we would want to send it to council for their approval. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
And I'll just add that that'll be the time that we make sure, you know, you'll have the next version well ahead of time, but we'll also be highlighting those changes for you, so that it's really clear on what's changed between this latest draft and the next version.
Great. And Jared, well, maybe it doesn't make sense. I was going to say if you could send out the link to everyone on the board again to look at, but you're in the process of updating from the public input. So yeah, okay. Probably not the time. Oh, well, Stephen just sent a link to the draft. So there you go. Okay. So it might make sense, especially for Van and Malay, to just peruse it a little bit. It's a long document, but very good and interesting. And I think you both would probably enjoy reading it and taking a look, getting familiar.
Yeah, certainly for me. So if we can get access to it, I can certainly read through that.
Great. So the link is in the chat if you look there, and we can follow up later and email that out as well.
No, I picked it up. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you, Jared and Chris, for the update.
Looks like Beverly has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Beverly, go ahead.
Well, as the chair of the Greenways Committee, you all would be shocked if I didn't have something to say on this. I would like to ask Jared, is it possible for you all to provide, well, and let me figure out where to start so that you all can all follow along. If you go to page 64 or 65 of the plan, you will see cross sections of what the different trail classifications are proposed to look like. And you'll also, this is for the entire board, you'll see that the about more than half of the entire Greenway system of 117 miles is included within what the consultants call the Oak City Trails classification. And the definition for that is what I would call an urban trails classification, and probably doesn't align with, say, Crabtree Creek as it goes up along to Oak Park and over by Enloe and other places. But there are a lot of places, there are a number of different places where the definition of an urban, of the Oak City Trail is an urban, right near Crabtree Mall is clearly an area where you would have lighting, where you would have buildings right up close to the Greenway, etc. But that doesn't, in my view, apply to the entire Crabtree Creek Greenway, the entire Walnut Creek Greenway, and the entire Rocky Branch. So I was wondering if you can do some, as part of this overlay, that highlight the places that will need to be more urban, while at the same time, we really need to be mindful of protecting the environmental component, the green component, the oasis, the wildlife component of the majority of the Greenway system, and to protect it from those environmental invasive species that we talked about, to tie in what Mr. Johnson talked about preserving more green space. And it, so I saw on your updates that you're looking at refining the trail classifications. I would suggest there needs to be a fourth trail classification, being an urban one. And then that would be very specifically urban, instead of applying that urban definition to all of the Oak City trails. So those are the pages that I hope board members will take a look at and see how that makes sense to you all.
Can you say those pages again, Beverly?
64, 60, this is off the top of my head, but not that I've read this report very many times or anything. I think it's pages 64 and 65. It's where you'll find those cross sections of what trail classifications look like.
Thank you.
And I can provide a response to that if you'd like. So yes, that is definitely a concern that we have heard. And so the purpose of the functional classifications is really to get at the amenities that we think are going to be needed on a specific corridor. And because our existing trails, so much of our existing trail network is the framework for the entire system, and they do connect places today, you're correct, they are mostly classified as Oak City Trail. However, I do think that what we can do to get to your point about the majority of the like Crabtree Creek Trail being forested and in like people's backyards type of thing is make that urban cross section secondary, because it is going to apply to smaller areas than what the greater whole will be. So what we're looking to do is add a primary cross section that will apply to the majority of the corridors that are called Oak City Trails. And that would look like something of like what you see today with the Crabtree Creek Trail. So it'd be in a more forested location with single family houses that maybe back up to it. So our plan is to add that as the primary cross section for the Oak City Trail. And then secondary to that is the more urban section. And then also emphasize in the text that that we know a majority of these Oak City Trails will look like the more forested section, but there are some areas that will look like the more urban as well.
Well, it sounds like you're on track on the sort of the overlay idea, or and subcat set, same difference kind of thing. And I think that's really important, because we're not going to light up 60 miles of the Greenway with lighting, or we would not be a climate responsible community. We wouldn't be a biophilic city. We wouldn't be doing all the other green things we say on the right hand. Got to be sure we're doing on the left hand. So thank you for that attention to that.
Marcia, do you have a comment?
I have a question. It sort of dovetails with something Doug Johnson said. I've noticed sometimes on some greenways that in some parks that there's not a clear definition between private residential property and greenways. And sometimes people appropriate greenway space or park space as part of their yard. And the lines get blurry, and I really hope that there's some way that can be stopped, prevented, by whether there's colored ballards or something that are placed so that a property owner as well as a greenway owner knows what's what, that the greenway owner doesn't get off and walk into somebody's yard, and also the property owner doesn't start planting flowers or doing something else that's kind of inconsistent with the park space.
So that issue is a code enforcement. Currently, the regulations today are meant to prohibit anyone from planting trees that are not native trees, or building fences, that type of thing, within our greenway easement. So when that happens, it's up to code enforcement to, I guess, address the problem. And there's, with such a large system, we don't typically go out and really address that unless it's in the way of a project that we're working on. And we certainly don't want to add anything visual that would further make the environment feel less natural. So that is a struggle that we have, that we're dealing with today, but it isn't, I don't know what else we could put into the master plan above what we already have today, because it's already prohibited.
But perhaps if it's pointed out and brought forward, that's something that there could be some code enforcement behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing a little bit of nodding heads. Okay. Probably not enough staff to really do it. Okay. Well, great. Any other comments or questions on the Greenway Master Plan? Seeing none, thank you both for the presentation and the update. And we will move on the agenda. Next on the agenda, we have the John Chavis Memorial Park track naming request. We have had numerous presentations and a lot of time to listen to folks from the public speak about this. And then we had some discussion in our last meeting. This is the time for us to take action on whether we want to do a naming or not. Dr. Love, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
I wanted to offer some comments and then offer a motion. I wanted to remind you that we have the John Chavis Cultural and Heritage Interpretive Plan. And on page 25 and page 37 of that, it addresses the athletes who have performed and who were active at Chavis Park. The design is intending to honor those people who were athletic in the various areas. And it names some of them in this plan. It's not complete, but the idea was to when you have an opportunity to look back at that, there are some very nice designs of how that would be presented in the plan. And I would like, if it's appropriate, to offer a motion that we not name that track at this point, because having talked with community members and realizing that there's some division, we don't want any division in the community over one site when everything seems to be going very well at this point.
Thank you. I see Marcia's holding her fingers up for a second. Okay, very good. If there's no more discussion, then we can move ahead to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And any against? The motion put forward by Dr. Love? Okay, seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. I think we had some really good discussion on that, and I feel good about the unanimous decision that was made there. Thanks, everybody. Moving on, did everyone have a chance to look at the meeting minutes from the last month? And
Beverly's hand is up.
Beverly, go ahead.
I just wanted to be sure I completely support Dr. Love's motion, and I think it's the right call in this particular naming request. But I would want to be sure that perhaps Oscar is going to forward a letter to the gentleman who had made the request, explaining that the motion that passed tonight and the opportunity for acknowledgement. Is that something Oscar's thinking about doing or appropriate?
Yes, that's something we can do. We can go ahead and follow up with the proposer. So we will definitely do that.
Thanks, Beverly.
Thank you.
That's a great comment. Do we have a motion for approval of the minutes?
I want to say that there's a mistake, I think. In the sustainability report, it says Beverly Clark. But I don't think Beverly was there with me.
Good catch.
I have some corrections, one of which is okay. The factual errors that I'm sorry, I don't have a list. Okay, here. It is one of them is acreage of the greenways. I mean, excuse me, miles of the greenways. It says 371 miles. And then later on it says Brad Johnson asked if the 280-mile figure could be bumped up to 300 miles to help expedite the bond issue, I believe. Is that correct?
I remember that discussion as well. That sounds right.
Yes, so that should be corrected. And I have written an email to Giovanna and to Oscar about correction of some of my own comments on the Arts Commission and a couple of other things. But if those corrections are made, I have no, and they're matters of fact, not grammar, I hasten to say. So if those are corrected, then I have no problem approving the minutes.
Thank you, Carol.
Hey, I move that I move that we go ahead and accept these minutes with these changes as we move forward with this meeting. But I move that we go ahead and accept the minutes with the changes that was made to move forward.
Is there a second?
Thank you, Marcia.
Oh, sorry, Lindsay, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just a minor detail in the third to last paragraph. My, I guess, salutation or something switches from Miss to Mr. Saunders. If I can stick with Miss Saunders the whole way, that's the only thing I noticed. So that's the third to last paragraph.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you,
So
Lindsay.
including that in the corrections then.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So again, I move with those three comments that was in the minutes that we go ahead and approve these minutes from the last meeting that we had and move forward. Can I get a second? Yeah.
I see a
Thank
couple seconds, but I think Marcia was first, so she wins.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Great, thank you. The minutes are approved. Next, we're moving to the director's report. Oscar?
Yes, hi, good evening, everybody. And before I dive into the director's report, I wanted to make a new staff introduction. Well, not necessarily a new staff member, an existing staff member with a new title. So with us this evening, we have Andrea White. Andrea, wave your hands so everybody can see you. Andrea White is our newest PRCR Equity and Strategic Initiatives Manager. Andrea has been with the department for, remind me, Andrea, about what, 6 years?
7 years.
7 years, I was one off. Most recently, she was a director of Green Road Community Center, where one of her last big hurrahs was hosting President Biden when he visited Raleigh several months back to promote the vaccine rollouts and so forth. So Andrea's been doing a great job for us overall. Like I said, she will be leading our equity and strategic initiatives for the department. She is an existing core team member of the departmental diversity, equity, and inclusion team, and has been doing a lot of great work with that group as well. So we're really fortunate to have Andrea on board with us up at the Raleigh Municipal Building. That's going to be carrying out a lot of our equity and strategic initiatives moving forward. So congratulations, Andrea, for your new role. And I'll hand it over to Andrea in case she wants to go ahead and say anything about herself.
Yes, thank you, Oscar, for the introduction. If not anything, just for people to hear what I sound like, right? So you asked me if I wanted to say anything to the group, and I wrote back, of course. I just want to say, I'm definitely so grateful for the opportunity that has been afforded to me. It's not every day that you're able to walk into a position that captures the true epitome or essence of who you are as an individual. And I can say that I absolutely have been given that opportunity. I am so looking forward to just carrying out the initiatives and the vision of our director, our leadership team, getting to work with the advisory board more, learning everyone. Dr. Love, I have heard wonderful things about you. across the department. So I'm so looking forward to just getting to know everyone on this board a little bit better. And again, just thank you to Oscar and Scott for the opportunity. And I'm going to do some great things alongside all of you great individuals and great reports tonight, especially on the invasive species. It makes me want to go out and start digging and doing some real work, right? So thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to speak. Thank you,
Welcome
Oscar.
aboard and congratulations.
Thank you.
And too bad Owen and Lee are not on board here, because if not, they would have found their third staff member for their invasives. But all right, thank you so much, Andrea. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and dive into
Ask a quick question of Andrea. So,
yes, you sure can. Sorry.
Andrea, will you be heading up the equity sessions that we as a board are meant to be having at some point?
I will be working with other members of the core team.
Okay.
So, and definitely working on that with members. I'm not necessarily going to say heading it up, but definitely being a part of it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Sorry, Oscar, go ahead.
All right, and Lindsay, I did get your note as well. So thank you for pointing that out. All right, you all do have a copy of the director's report, and I just did want to kind of touch on a few items. First of all, on October 5th, Scott shepherded a city code amendment to allow us to be able to drink at Jocelyn Garden and also the Tucker House. So as you all know, Jocelyn Garden was just recently donated to us from the City of Oaks Foundation. So it is the newest piece of property in the Parks and Recreation Cultural Resources portfolio. So we added that for opportunity to have special events. And then also at the last time that the code was amended, Tucker House was somehow inadvertently left out. So that just adds to our portfolio of event venue rentals where we can allow alcohol permits and so forth. Also, at that same meeting, Scott shepherded through a updated lease agreement with the Raleigh Little Theater. And so it's we're looking at about a 5-year term with 3 additional 1-year extensions for a total of about an 8-year thing. So that partnership with Raleigh Little Theater continues. And so we're really excited about that. There's also been a lot of work. I know you all had interest earlier on in the summer when we had to shut down certain sections of the Neuse River boat launches because of various log and debris jams, especially below the US 64 bridge and the Coastal Carolina Railroad. So staff has done a lot of great work down there in collaboration with contractors as well as partners with the railroad and also NCDOT. So they have cleared the majority of those log jams, which is great news. And now staff has been working with our risk management department on putting new educational signage and risk notification signage out at those boat launches to better inform users of river conditions. So great progress moving forward on that. And we're really excited about all the work that has been done, collaboratively in that approach. I did want to remind you all, Saturday, November 6th is going to be the Pullen Park tree planting event. So if you have not signed up yet, there is a link on the director's report for you all to kind of sign up and help plant over 100 tree species, or 100 trees, I should say, out at Pullen Park that day. And then once again, the city of Raleigh is participating in the Lights Out campaign for to help migrating birds. That campaign was running from September 10th to November 30th. So in essence, what we're doing is we're turning off any non-essential lighting in city operated facilities between the hours of 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. to help nighttime migratory birds stay safe. So any lights that are typically left on disorient birds and cause confusion amongst them, and then they end up crashing into windows and so forth, causing that mortality. So we're one of the few cities in the state that's actually participating in this program, but one of many internationally to do that. And so this is just one of those initiatives that kind of still reinforces why we're such a great candidate to become a biophilic city. And then a couple of other items that are not on the list. On October 8th, we celebrated that Structure 106 is no longer a thing. So on October 8th, we celebrated the opening of the Ratchford Road Connector, which basically eliminates any type of boardwalks. And now we basically have an opportunity to just utilize Ratchford Road as a connector for the Crabtree Creek Greenway. We did have Councilmember Buffkin present to say a few words, and we also had our very own Christina Jones and her crew down there visiting a section of the Greenway, along with members of Oaks and Spokes, of course, PRCR staff and transportation staff. So we did have an inaugural ride down the trail with a lot of our bike ped friends. So that was a really fun day and a big win for the community as far as Greenway connectivity. And lastly, if y'all are football fans, I'm not sure if y'all watched the Panthers game this past Sunday, but about 25 of our Barwell Road youth participants were treated to the Carolina Panthers game, courtesy of the Carolina Panthers. And as y'all remember, we have an existing partnership, I think that was helped facilitated by Stephen with the Panthers, where they were gave us $150,000 towards the Carolina Panthers Barwell Road playground and challenge course out there. But the second part of this partnership was inviting the youth out to a game. They treated them like royalty. And at halftime, the Barwell Road Center Director, Tori Vasca, was able to go down to the field and receive a $4,000 check donation from the Panthers and the American Ultimate Disc League. And that money is going to go towards Barwell Road programs. So it was a great day. The kids were up on the Jumbotron, and it was just a great day all around for the Raleigh Parks Department, as well as Barwell Road Community Center. And that's the end of my presentation. I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that update. Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay. Thanks, Oscar.
You're welcome.
Next, we have committee reports. So Christina, Parks Committee, any report?
We had our first official meeting this month. We moved it from the 7th to the 14th. So I thank all of you that were able to change your schedules for that. We set forth a beginning stages of a plan. It was a great discussion about what this event could look like. We're trying to create an event that utilizes multiple community centers around Raleigh on the same day to welcome new Raleigh residents and teach them about our park system. So we're going to continue learning and creating our event, and hopefully we'll have more for you next month. And then we also talked about the fee updated, sorry, I'm getting the words wrong, the upcharge in the fee schedule, and they're teaching us about that. We just did an introductory, like I only gave them 5 minutes, I felt so bad. But next month, we're going to deep dive into it, and we'll be sending out some information. So we'll come to you guys in the future with that. Other than that, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Lindsay, I don't think Fletcher Committee's meeting yet, right?
Well, we're actually going to find our time to meet. So I'll be sending out some sort of planning for that. And we are aiming, I got an update from Mary today. So we're aiming to get May 10th, 2022 as approved for the night to celebrate the Fletcher Awards. So can pencil that in for now. That application is pending, but that's the date that we're shooting for.
Are you looking to do that in person, Lindsay? Is that the plan? Yes, I see Sally nodding. Okay.
I'm not sure. I mean, but it looks like it. Yeah, looks like the application's gone in to use Fletcher Theater.
Correct.
So yeah.
Good deal. Okay. Okay, was that it? Great. Greenways Committee, Beverly.
We had Lisa Schiffbauer at our committee meeting on Monday of this, or last week, on the 8th, talking about about the Greenway master plan update, and so that we got tonight. So I won't repeat any of that. But one thing that I did want to bring up and get advice and consultation on is out of the master plan, and I think Malay brought this up, is a need to look at additional sources of funding, whether it's for greenways and in particular that's identified as part of the plan. And so in future meetings, we would like to look at the various nonprofits that support Raleigh Greenways and explore better ways to integrate what they're doing with the Parks and Rec department, and it may also expand into opportunities for adopting parts of the Greenway to have some private support. That's something that for a future agenda as an outgrowth of the master plan.
Great. Sounds good. Marcia, Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Committee.
Right. I have two. We've met twice since we last met. So on the September 20th meeting, Sally gave us a great overview of tree disposal processes that the city uses for our parks. And staff try to find the highest and best use of the trees that need to come down in parks or along streetways. And then we had another biophilic city update. One of the comments that was made at the end of that meeting is that the tree canopy is a social justice concern. And we are really looking forward to having a tree canopy study done that will give us a better idea of where the leafy parts of the city are and where parts of the city need to have more tree canopy for improving public health and lowering the temperature. Then we met again on October 18th, and Zach Maynor, the urban forester, updated the committee about the plans for a tree recognition program and a Tree of the Month program. And the staff's working on that. It'll be an opportunity for citizens to nominate their favorite trees. So we're interested in creating a way for citizens to be more aware of their trees and show off their favorite trees. And the biophilic city update, this past meeting, Scott had the good news that Raleigh Water is joining with the other departments of the city that are part of the biophilic cities application. And the staff is beginning to work. Scott's working on the application, and we may be able to discuss it at our November meeting and then be able to send it to council. So, Beverly, you have a question? Unmute.
Yeah. All right. Could either you or Sally expand a little bit on the highest and best use of trees? I've actually been approached by a business that makes products with trees, and their response or their questions about ability to capitalize on those down trees was concerning.
Sally?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It might require a sidebar, but the short version is that moving this wood is very expensive and probably one of the biggest barriers to being really creative with our wood waste in the city of Raleigh. And the other thing is how variable the wood can be. Different species, urban timber can have nails and all kinds of defects in it that is challenging to process that into usable lumber for furniture making and things like that. So we do continue to explore all kinds of opportunities. We have worked with artists to create art out of some of our down trees. And for the most part, we're either mulching. It's being turned into mulch, which we use back into in our parks, or it's being disposed of at our yard waste center, where it is turned into a variety of different products. So that's the short version.
Is there any information about that on our website for people? How would they know where to go?
No, although I can, the yard waste center information is out there.
No, but I mean, if they wanted to creatively use trees.
So we've been really doing that on a case-by-case basis. So if you wanted to connect me with someone, I'd be happy to have that conversation.
Sure.
I just wanted to quickly comment that, and I can't remember when this was done, but I think a while back, City of Raleigh had this urban tree that was down by the 5 Points area, and I think the crew was cutting the tree up into pieces, and people could just get there and they can just get the wood. And I thought that was a very unique and a great way to recycle this, because I think there was a Reddit post on it, and a bunch of people came, took those pieces of wood, turned them into beautiful, coasters for their homes or platters for their homes. Everyone used it very, very creatively. I recognize that that's not something that's feasible for every down tree that's happens in our area, but it was very unique, and it was very good to kind of see that engagement with the community. And if that is something that we can potentially explore for the future, I thought it was a very successful way to kind of engage the community for sure.
Yeah, that might have been the Nash Square tree. I remember that happened with that one.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe it was not the 5 Points, it was the Nash Square tree area.
And that was partly because that tree just had so much, people felt very attached to it, and it was a very old tree that had been there a long time. So it was a way for the city to kind of say, it's time for it to go, but we'll share a piece with everyone. And that was very nice. I agree.
Yeah.
Marcia.
Yeah, just wanted to say that if we have any other people that are interested in what this committee is doing, our next meeting is November 15th. That we meet at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Great. Yep, they made a squirrel and a bench maybe out of the Nash Square tree. Yep. Very good. Brad and Christina, has Devereaux Meadow Park met? No. Okay. Is that ever going to
It's
meet?
scheduled. It got scheduled for December, I think it is.
Okay. Good.
I'm bad at knowing anything about the time or day, but I think that December's right.
Okay. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Now liaison reports. First, Carol with the Arts Commission.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I have a brief comment about opening up a certain program that currently exists, and that is one called Citizen Initiated Art that the Arts Administration Commission administers, and artists apply to them to paint sewer risers. And then they go through an approval or denial process, I suppose. And I thought, why do they have to, the artists themselves have to apply? And I would like to submit that the department and the board might want to consider ways with the Arts Commission to open this up and actually solicit people to submit their art plans for sewer risers. That's it. And I told the Arts Commission that I would bring word back from y'all if you have any comments or suggestions. Any comments or suggestions?
On how to get more people to submit art?
Well, do you think that we could work with them, or that we do need to open this process up? Because the art that has been approved so far is, I'm sorry, is very nice. And I think that all the supervisors, or maybe 50% of them, should have this treatment, because we have so many of them in our greenways and our parks. And I would really like to see them. I would like to see both arts promoted, and I'd like to see things made more aesthetic at our parks and greenways.
Beverly, do you have something to say?
Well, it sounds to me, Carol, like what you're asking is how do we make this process easier and more open?
And also whether we want to do it or not. I need to be respectful of staff time, of the art commissioner's time, and our time.
Well, if it involves having committee meetings and reviewing art plans and all of that, I think that our plate's pretty full. But if it is sort of having a guidelines of, you know, certain things you can't do but parameters to operate under, then why not just let the creativity flow and let people say, I'm going to adopt the one that's on North Fork East and do it and hear the parameters and go forth. I mean, it's paint. So I would be in favor of it being as simple and as artist directed and without a lot of committee review but that's just me.
Okay, thank you, Beverly.
Scott,
that's very helpful.
Well, the citizen initiated public art process does go through a committee review of the Art and Education Committee within the Arts Commission. And that reason is they're the folks that actually determine what is art and what is not, which is an important piece when you're trying to make sure that the work that will be placed in the public realm is worthy of being in the public realm. And that's a role they play for those requests that come in, is that committee of the Arts Commission does vet that to ensure it's appropriate work. So they kind of take on that role for those spaces. I think it would be really good. I think there is a lot of interest in expanding, definitely, as Ms. Ashcraft has brought forward. It may be, are there areas that we, working with Raleigh Water, because we have to remember those are their infrastructure, would highlight and prioritize. That might be a piece that we could help do, is help prioritize areas. So when requests come in, the curators could say, here are areas we're looking for that are priority for work.
Thank you very much.
Malaya, did you have a comment?
No, I think Scott answered my question, because my thought process on this was, could we not just do this on an exception base, where if this is movable art, then let people just pursue it. And then if there are exceptions that are raised, then you just simply move it. And, you know, you address it from that perspective. And it increases the velocity of being able to deploy these kind of initiatives faster. But it sounds like there's already a committee that's kind of going through the guidelines, so the exception won't be necessary.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you all very much. Scott, that's very good to know. I didn't convey that adequately to the board. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, Carol.
Thank you.
Do you have a report for BPAC, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission?
Yes, we actually just met on Monday. It was a great meeting. There was a point that I wanted to bring that I thought would interest, of course, would interest our board. And they brought up the Nights of Lights that are happening again this year, and that this year they're going to do 2 bike nights. The discussion they had, which they're going to further discussion and explanation, is the entrance, because for the bike night specifically, and please correct me if I'm wrong, where the entrance last year with the cars was on Hunt Drive, they're moving it to a different area. And their concern was that the grade at which the slope is just wasn't going to be enough. It would make people too tired because it's going to go up like 50 feet over a quarter of a mile. So I know that staff is going back and researching that a little bit more based on the feedback from BPAC. So that hadn't come back yet. If that entrance will move at all, the reason they didn't want it on Hunt Drive was because it was not light enough. There wasn't enough light there. It's way too dark. But then now the concern is people with families, people with children, to have to bicycle up that far might be cumbersome. But I will let you know unless staff has any more feedback. But that just happened on Monday, so I'm sure nothing has drastically changed. But I will update you more next time.
Christina, if I could add to that, I knew several people who did the bike ride last year, and they did say that it was very dark when they went back on the Greenway, that it was a little bit scary and people were moving really fast in both directions and they couldn't see people. So I would just, echo that. I think that it sounds like that's why they're moving some of the location for the start point. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they said they would look back at it, but they'll come back next month, and that'll be right before this meeting. So I'll make sure to update you if that entrance changes back or where it will be.
Right.
I think the dates are also, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's November 14th and December 13th are the 2 dates for the bike rides, but please let me know if I'm wrong with that. Beverly?
It might be a good requirement to require that all people riding have lights. That was not a requirement last year, and it was the cyclists themselves were quite dark.
Yeah. And people who are riding with children, a lot of times they don't necessarily have lights because they don't ride at dark a lot.
Awesome.
Sorry about that. My window's open.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sally, do you have a report for the
Sure, yeah, really quickly. So especially for the new board members, we have a Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board for which I'm the staff liaison. And we'll be meeting next Thursday, the 28th at 5:30. It'll be a virtual meeting on Zoom, but in normal times we meet over at the Tucker House. And this board is charged with the care and continuation and history of our historic cemeteries in the city of Raleigh. We do have 2 new members, Shelley Winters and Amy Fix will be joining us for their first meeting next week. And then we do have another member that's been nominated, and if they're approved by council, we'll have a full board for the first time in 2 years. So I'm really proud of all the efforts of that board over the last couple of years to rebuild, and I'm sure they'll have a lot of great work to do. Just a really quick story. One of our maintenance workers on the cemetery crew got promoted to another crew. His name's Brandon. And I don't know if you know this, but cemetery workers have a very interesting sense of humor. So when he left, they got him a farewell cake, and it was gray and it was a square. And on the top of it, it said, "You're dead to me." Thanks, everybody.
Nice. You're bringing back the jokes to this segment. Great. Well, let's see. I think next is Dick's. No, let me see. Yes, next is Dick's Leadership Committee. So I've got my notes up here. The last meeting was September 28th, virtual, and the next meeting will be this coming Tuesday, October 26th. At that meeting, The staff mentioned there's been a lot of letters of interest from various organizations who would like to have space at Dix Park. So there's a list of those. And if you look at the Dix Leadership Committee meeting and agenda online, just like you can look at ours, you can see that list and all those accompanying documents if you're interested. But it was varied from schools to museums to church, arboretums, sports organizations to STEM related groups. So very interesting. And at this point, the leadership committee and staff are reviewing some of those letters of interest. There's an RFQ out to study the buildings and do site analysis to sort of vet the master plan and the state of the existing buildings on the Dix campus, along with a market and financial feasibility analysis to evaluate options for financing and structuring partnerships to determine the feasibility of development there, redevelopment. I think that RFQ just closed, so that'll be reviewed soon, and a firm will be chosen for that. And then there's also a study, and this is, I guess this is in the public documents, so this is out there, to determine the feasibility of having marbles located next to Plaza and Play. So interesting. So Michael Van Valkenburg, that's currently doing the Plaza and Play design, that has been added to their list of things to look into, how to sort of dovetail those two items. So that is the Dix Leadership Committee report. Any questions? Next is Historic Resources and Museums Advisory Board. And I did not attend that one, but I do have some brief notes. Mordecai, they're still working on the plantation office. That's been taking longer than it's anticipated. The Andrew Johnson House will be featured in the Our State magazine in November. And starting at Moore Square in October, so that's now, they're doing cinema in the square. And the Friends of the Raleigh Museum are doing the Dark Raleigh tours coming up here October 28th and 29th. I don't know if there's still tickets, but if so, that sounds super cool. So our next meeting will be coming up shortly. That was from September 22nd. Any questions on that? Okay. Share reports. So I don't have much to report. The only thing I would say is I've realized that the next meeting, I think I'm going to be camping with the family. So I've asked Beverly if she can run that next meeting, because I think my Wi-Fi will be very spotty. But I'll try to call in and attend the meeting. So thank you, Beverly. Now it's open, the floor is open. Anyone have any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about? Van and Malay, maybe this would be a great time to introduce yourselves briefly and we can welcome you to the board.
Sure. I'll introduce myself, right? So my name is Malay Patel. I've been in Raleigh for the last 11 years. I'm originally from India, moved to New Jersey. I've been in New Jersey for a while, and just as we were getting married, we decided to move to Raleigh. I work in financial services industry and technology, and I provide strategic consulting services for my organization. Yeah, I'm based out of Briar Creek. We've got 2 little kids. We love the park, and I'm super excited to be part of this.
Thank you. Van?
Yeah, delighted to be on the board with you guys. And I, as I mentioned a little earlier when we did a little orientation, I live really close to Pullen Park. In fact, I live in what's called historic Pullen Park Terrace, right behind the YMCA on Hillsborough Street, and have lived there since 2009. And I have 3 kids now, 16, 14, and 12, but we have just used the parks a lot, especially Pullen Park. I can hear the train, a little train whistle all the time. It's one of my favorite sounds. I'm a triathlete, so I use the Greenway system for runs in the pools very often. In fact, I'm sitting in a hotel room right now because I'm getting ready to do a half Ironman in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'm also a realtor. So since I'm not from Raleigh and I have grown to, I grew up in High Point. We did not have Greenways in High Point. So it has been fun to introduce people to all that Raleigh has to offer. I think it is a tremendous, tremendous amenity that our city has. Dick's and the Greenway and our parks and pools, and it just, so this is a natural fit for me, or it feels that way. And I'm delighted to be serving with you guys.
Thank you so much. Brad, I saw your hand up. And then Dr. Love.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the board, y'all. I just had two brief things to mention. Andrea, I'm glad you're here, and I just want to highlight the fact that we've had sort of this weird sort of ceiling for a lot of our community center sort of leadership moving up into the central office, and I'm really excited to see that sort of happening. And I hope we continue to see that, because we have a lot of really awesome leadership around the city in those spaces. So I just wanted to highlight that and service that. That's really awesome. Did anybody mention the stroll that happened this weekend? It was literally in my backyard, so that was funny. But it was a really great event, and both, Chavis and Dick showed off really well, and then they closed Lenore for like 6 blocks in between the two. And it was a really awesome event. I saw some stressed out park staff, so I figured it'd be worthwhile noting that they all put on a really great event, and it was really fantastic. I know that sort of started one place and ended up being something that other people had to sort of run. So it ended up being a little awkward, but it was a really great event, and hopefully we find more opportunities to sort of highlight our parks through connectivity programs like that. So anyway, just thought I'd highlight that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Dr. Love, go ahead.
I want to say that I'm really pleased to report, if you haven't paid attention, the first historical plaza exhibit is up. It has the timeline that we discussed before. You saw some of the slides they sent you. Those are in the exhibit. The date line, the timeline is on the outside. So they were putting in the lights a few days ago when I was there. So I plan to go check it out at night. But if you go during the day, it's really a wonderful piece. And I am pleased that it's moving along with the cultural heritage interpretive piece that we've been working on for so long.
Thank you.
Oh, question for Oscar. Will there be a ribbon cutting for that to introduce it to the city?
Yes, Dr. I was trying to unmute myself after you had mentioned that. So yes, we're still I think we're still waiting for a couple of final permits for the actual display itself, some electrical permits and so forth. So as soon as we have those in hand, we will be reaching out and start planning a dedication event for the past to present exhibit there at Chavis. So yes, we will let you all know fairly soon when that will occur.
Thank you.
Lex, I saw your hand up as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Not really board business. Just wanted to share some personal news with y'all that my wife and I are expecting our second child next month. His due date is actually, thank you. His due date's actually a month from tonight. So it's like 3 or 4 days after our scheduled meeting. So if he sticks to the schedule, you'll see me next month. But if he comes a little early, I might not see y'all till December.
Even if we see you, you might be very sleepy.
Yeah. Very heavy, baggy eyelids.
Thanks for sharing. That's great.
Thank you.
Oh,
yay, Lindsay. Congratulations. Yeah. I just saw your message.
Lindsay, go.
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to share that since Christina moved the Parks Committee meeting from October 7th to the 14th, I attended, and so did Carol and Marcia, the Wings of Mexico exhibit, which is now at Dick's Park. There's 9 sculptures over mostly in the Grove area, and they will be there until March. Really beautiful. It was a lovely evening, really a lot of fun, very multicultural, and just we also lucked out. It didn't rain until the whole evening was over, which was really nice. So you'll have plenty of time to go check it out, but just wanted to put in a plug for that we've got a real asset over there for, I don't know, 5 months or something like that. Apparently it's been traveling for a decade around the world, and it typically occupies spaces for about 6 months, and then it moves on to its next home. So
plus it's a must-do selfie
yes.
for one of the sculptures.
Yeah, so
And it's really fun to watch the family.
Oh, Carol, you muted yourself in the middle of talking.
Thing to do most of the time.
Yeah.
To see the mothers and the children in front of the wings. So it looks like the mother has wings. It's really great. I mean, you got to take your dog or a cat or whatever. So it's really fun. Y'all go.
Well, we're planning to go and hold the baby up. Anyways, that's all. I just wanted to share. It's really lovely.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Lindsay, also, when are you due? That's coming up shortly, right?
Any day now, November 1st.
Okay. Oh boy, so exciting.
Yeah.
Keep us informed.
My passenger's quite squirmy.
Does anyone else have anything to share for the good of the board? Christina, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. First, I want to welcome our new members of the board. We're so happy you're here. And Malay, I live right near Briar Creek. My 2 daughters go to Briar Creek Elementary, so I'm so glad to have someone else on this side of town. Welcome, welcome. And then I wanted to more question for Sally. I think I'm signed up on Saturday for the Oberlin Cemetery cleanup. That is this Saturday, right?
So that's a friends group, and we're not affiliated with them, although Dr. McGill is on our cemetery board, so we do know about it and support them.
Okay, all right, well then never mind. Thank you so much.
Christina, my husband's on that board. He's one of the organizers for the cleanup. So,
This will be my first cleanup, so I'm excited about it. But
Yeah.
I will report back next month.
Yeah.
and,
Well,
know,
it's not a city cemetery. Anyway.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? Well, see none, and we've completed our agenda. I declare this meeting done. Thank you. Everyone have a great night.
Great night, everyone.
Hi, y'all.
Yeah.
Have a great
And
night.
welcome new
Good night.
members.
Thank you.